So, firstly, to start off, we would like to ask what got you interested in working on natural resources and climate change, and whether there was a particular moment or experience that you felt that made you feel that this was the path for you.
So I have been an energy lawyer for nearly 3 decades now. And the big part of climate change debate is so there was a time in my legal practice when we started talking about alternative fuels like LNG, which is in full form is liquefied natural gas, as a fuel of the future. And then in 2020, 21, we started talking about hydrogen as a potential alternative fuel in India, as it was progressing very well in the West, particularly Europe. So there are trains which run on hydrogen as a fuel in Europe and also in China, because there are no fumes except that at the end of the process, which is a electrolysis process, only water is discharged. So in a hydrogen sort of phenomena. So, when we were doing all these transitions, automatically element of climate and environmental law came into whole being. And that's when I started sort of taking deeper interest in the subject.
Okay, thank you so much. That's interesting.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh,
Does that
yes.
address your question?
It does
Yes.
actually give us a very clear idea as to.
Yeah.
So, as an extension to that, there's so much going on when it comes to climate change. In your opinion, what's the one issue that the world really needs to focus on urgently?
So you see, for sustainable development, there are 16 sustainable development goals which United Nations has announced. So perhaps in your research, you should look at all of these 16. If you look at all of them, they all lead to a path which talks or results in a climate transition or a climate change sort of situation. It addresses that issue. So therefore, there is no one sort of pillar, as if I may use that word, which needs to be pursued. I think all of the 16 SDGs have to be pursued so that we get an effective sort of transition and not only the energy transition, but also how we live, how we treat our habitat, how we live in this habitat. What do we do with the flora and fauna? What do we do with biosphere? What do we do with our mountains, our rivers? So it's a whole gambit of it. So there is no one sort of pillar that we need to address. I think we need to address this issue from a multi-pronged approach with multiple goals at hand.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. So, it's a
Mm.
multifaceted problem, so it's on a global scale.
Yeah, so you see what the issue is, that every activity, the activity that we're also undertaking right now in terms of talking to each other through this call, is leaving a carbon footprint. Okay.
Exactly.
Now,
Yes.
once the carbon is produced, there is no it always remain in the atmosphere. Okay. So the idea is, how do we capture and control? So there is what we call the CCUS, carbon capture and storage, utilization and storage sort of systems which are in place in the world. So we need to sort of look at it from a very holistic perspective. And also as human beings, we lived much simply earlier. But now, as our lives are getting complex and our minds are getting complex, we are leaving bigger footprints. carbon footprints. So I think the idea is to also not only look at these SDGs, but also create a society which is more climate conscious, you know,
Yes.
and every action, if I'm switching off the switching on the fan, do I need it? Do I need so many lights in my room? So all these little things makes reduces our carbon footprint on earth. So therefore I think it'll have to be a human behavioral change. It will be a change at societal level. It'll be a change at community level, and all of this will accumulate as a change at the national level. So if you expect government only to do exercise, I don't think it'll function. What it needs is a greater awareness and greater climate consciousness among citizens in the country.
Yes, understood. That was a very good answer
Uh,
for our question.
Yeah.
so, although you
Any other
said that,
question?
sorry, okay,
No,
so
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
although you said that this climate change conversation is not something that simply lies in the hands of the government, I would right now like to focus on how laws and policies actually help in tackling climate change. And do you think they make a real difference, or do they sometimes fall short?
No. So I think if you really look at it, right now, I am an amicus in India's one and the only carbon emission case, which is before the Supreme Court of India. And I am the friend of the court there. Amicus is basically a friend of the court.
Mm,
And I'm assisting the court with what they're grappling with in terms of that litigation. So what I'm trying to say is, I have always said that we have enough law on the book. What we need to do is we need to implement that law. Okay.
right.
Uh, I'll just give you an example. Okay. Now there is a lot that has happened in the fuel conservation space. Okay. There's a lot that has happened in um, areas like housing, sustainable housing. There are norms there, okay, and there are rules there. But when new constructions come up, we normally flout those rules.
Mm,
Now, PM 2.5, which is the particulate matter, 2.5, PM 10. In a city like Delhi, we all live in Delhi, National Capital Region. You know why they are high? It's not high just because of the tailpipe emissions which come from the cars and the trucks and other vehicles. Yes, they are also part of the game, part of the total composite. But one big chunk, nearly I think 35 to 40% is the dust. Okay. How is this dust? Because construction activity produces dust, and we are not taking adequate measures to control it. To be sort of, it's coming in the atmosphere and it is creating higher levels of PM 2.5 and PM 10. So therefore, what are happening is that there are a lot of these particulates which are now suspended in the air. Similarly, when our vehicles move on the road, um, or when a dumper is coming out of a construction site, there's a lot of sand and other things which come out with that. The roads are dusty. So therefore, there's a lot of dust which becomes part of the total composite of how the quality of air deteriorates over Delhi, you know. So we often just sort of blame it. It's not crackers. During Diwali time, yes, at that time of the year, the air is sort of more locked. Therefore, we feel it's crackers. That's only one day in a year. What about the rest of the year? Okay. Now, if you look at Delhi's air quality index for from January 2024 to December 2024, you know what should be the AQI? 50. It is it is on a rainy day, it is about 100, Okay. Even when it's rainy season in our country, even that time it is at that level. Normally it ranges between 200 to 300. And then when this season comes in winters, it goes to 350, 400, you know. So there's a lot of rules and regulations which are on law, coming back to your question on law, I think there is a lot of law in the books. I think the idea is that we should be able to implement, the executive should be able to implement it. We have to strengthen the executive to implement it.
Right. So, you said that the dust particles due to construction is one of the main reasons for this high AQI in Delhi. So, India being a developing country, how do we balance urbanization with climate
No, I
action?
think I always say that we don't have to stop development. I'm not one of those people who says, the development has to suffer at the hands of environment. No. What I say is that if you conceive a project, let me just think of a project. Okay. So if you think of building a multi-story building, say a manufacturing hub. Now, if you create a manufacturing hub, can't you, when you know that it's going to cost this much, this much, this much, this much cement, this much water, this much labor, everything else, the part of our planning, okay, for construction of that, uh, sort of factory complex or a mall or a development complex should be, how do I do this sustainably? Okay, that building can be built in a very sustainable manner also. So I think that currently in our mindset it is about, oh, quickly I need to make the building. But where about, I think if one in the on the drawing board, if we also put one other chip, which is that how am I going to do all of these activities sustainably, where sustainability is an important factor, I think the solution we will find ourselves. Okay, solution is not to be found anywhere else. Solution we'll only have to find. And solution is very easy. So your development happens and also your sustainability. Now, Singapore, if you look at it, it's today a developed, but it was not developed 15, 20, 30 years ago, if you look at it. It has also done development, but it has also looked at sustainability. Okay, you can't, there are a lot of measures which I mean, it's a small place, but there are a lot of measures that they undertake, which looks after environment and climate change issues. So what I'm saying is development doesn't have to stop. Our progress doesn't have to stop. I think we have to start thinking, how am I going to do this activity with sustainability in my mind? So the question is sustainable development, not just
Right.
development, but sustainable development.
We also did some research on your works. I think what you said comes under, if I'm not wrong, special economic zone projects, which are like uh, modern developments to be designed, and designing and integration of them. Like you gave the example of Singapore is important. Is that something that is related to this?
Yeah, so economic zones, wherever we are constructing, or ports we are constructing. I know that there are a lot of LNG ports which are coming up. Just now we had this Kochi, we had this terminal which was inaugurated, a cargo terminal which was inaugurated. See, all this can happen. I don't think there is anything to stop all of this. But the idea is that whatever we're going to do it sustainably. It's going to be part of our drawing board. Yes, if I'm going to order so many million tons of cement, if I'm going to order so many liters of water for construction of this project, what is it going to cost me? But also, part of it, 5%, 7%, whatever it may be for each project. How am I going to do it sustainably? What am I going to do to bring sustainability to this project? I think this kind of thinking has been going on in some developed countries for a long time, in terms of energy conservation. For example, one example I can give you is that in some parts of the world, especially Europe, they have said that the hotels, restaurant can't put temperature of air conditioning below 24 degrees. Now, that is an energy conservation step. Okay. Now, we need to do something like that. Okay. I'm just giving you a small example. I have two adjacent rooms in my office. Okay. And you don't have to quote me. Just so I have two adjacent rooms in my office. I have a lamp on my table. From look at my work and my laptop. Okay, I don't switch on any other light in my room. I don't even have a fan in my room. In the next room, there's an air conditioner. It brings me cool breeze from there, and one air conditioner is good enough for both the rooms. So I think it's just making it a habit that if somebody comes in to meet me in that room, I switch on the light, I switch on the fan. It's not that I don't do that. I do that, but I don't need to have it burning all day. You know. So the idea is, what do I do as an individual to take the first steps? Okay.
Climate action starts at home.
Yes, with individual action. Climate action starts with individual action. So one other example I can give you, for example, my book was published. I knew there'll be 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 copies, which will, whatever, they'll print. So what I did 2 years before, and I knew that that would create a carbon footprint. Okay. Now, how do I offset that? As a climate conscious citizen, it's easy to lecture and talk about these things to others. You should practice it at home. So, 2 years before the book was published, and it's actually written in the foreword to the book, I planted a mini forest, okay, where I planted 1,300 trees. And so, to offset the print of my book, so today it's a lush green forest in Miyawaki style. I'll tell Nikhar to share some pictures with you. So I'm just saying it's all individual action. You know, before
Yes.
I publish my next book, I should lay a forest. And if every individual starts doing that, you will see a drastic change in our society and the way we think. And same way, even the builders, large infrastructure companies, port manufacturers, uh, people who construct these ports, people who build roads, all of them will start thinking and saying, okay, no, we are going to do this more sustainably. We're going to build this road, but how am I going to contain the dust, so that dust doesn't go away and become part of the atmosphere. So, there are a lot of ways to do that. And so you need to start thinking, and you only have to put on your thinking cap and say, okay, what am I going to do if I undertake this project? What harm, what kind of carbon footprint it would leave, and how am I going to take care of those carbon emissions? And if every one of us, through every act, whether building a dam, whether building a road, whether building a port, whether building a highway, doing anything that we do, if we think of that sustainable element in our project, I think we have surmounted a big elephant.
Yes, I think that was a wonderful initiative that you talked about. So it's like if everyone as a community starts thinking in the same way, in like individual and community boards can come together to make a difference.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely.
Uh, So we know that you also worked on natural resources and infrastructural laws across diverse geographies like
Yeah.
Middle East and Africa. So do you see, like you said, traditional ecological knowledge through legal corporations and governments being applied to similar practices here in India, like in other countries?
I think what it was 2 years back when somebody from Saudi Arabia reached out to me to help them with some project with sustainability in mind. So I think you go to Dubai, I mean, those are all visible examples, how a desert has been created, golf courses have been created. You go in summer months to Dubai, you find all roundabouts as flowers. How are they able to do all that? You know?
Exactly.
So, and same, you go to Qatar, you go to Oman, you go to any of these Gulf countries, which were deserts at one point of time. Not that they don't have deserts. So if you travel from Dubai to Abu Dhabi, and if you see on both sides of the road, I asked my driver last time, I said, what is this wall? So they have a wall, and over the wall, they have sort of an iron sort of cladding on top of it. And behind that, on both sides is, they have what they've, from a desert, they are creating a forest, in Dubai. So this is a road between Sheikh Zayed Road between Dubai and Abu Dhabi. So they're doing it for miles. you have that forest being developed on both sides. So the idea is everybody can do it. You know, we
Yes.
can do it, so can the rest of the world.
Okay, thank you so much, Uncle. So, lastly, we wanted to ask you what we as young people can do, but I feel like you already answered that on an individual level, what we should do. But otherwise, do you think we have any impact on policy making in any way? Can we make our voices heard?
Sure, absolutely. Absolutely. For example, the case where I am the mic is, it's a 14-year-old girl from Uttarakhand who has filed that petition. She's saying that the government is not doing enough to control the carbon emissions, and therefore it is affecting my right to life. you know so I think, as I said earlier, we have to become climate conscious citizens. As much as we need to be development citizens, we need to be climate conscious citizens, in our own ways. So at our individual level, in our societies where we live, in our areas where we live, you may be young, but that doesn't shouldn't stop you or prohibit you from reaching out to your RWA president and tell him that, uncle, can we do this, and we'll help you. We have time, 2 hours on a Sunday, and we can help you do this. And I am sure that they will be very, very encouraged to see next generation taking that initiative. I think its idea is to reach out, you know, and if you reach out, I think people will sort of support you. And lo and behold, you'll find that they'll say, what can we do to help you in doing what the project that you're doing or you want to do, whether it's afforestation, whether it is cleaning the area. Now, most people, don't realize that how much pollution is also caused with just throwing the garbage around, you know. So there's so many things that the next generation can do, and I'm very hopeful that they will undertake what is required, to take our economy and our country from, I think, the fourth to number one position in times to come.
Yes, I think that is our job also as the young generation because we have so many resources, the information. So we should be able to apply
Correct.
it and inspire other people to
Correct.
take
Correct. So
action.
you see, we are from a generation when there was no internet. The books were the only source of research. Today, on the click of the mouse, you can, fetch information on any subject, almost every subject. You know, you have YouTube. If you don't know a subject, by the way, there is two conversations on YouTube that I've given. I don't know if you've seen them. One was a few months back with some lawyer from Chandigarh. He had interviewed me. I'll send Nikhar the links so you can have a look at it, what I've said there. Huh? And I recently was invited by Jindal Global Law School to come and speak on climate law and global trends. So there was so that I don't think there's a that talk is recorded, but or they may have recorded, but they'll it for their internal use. But what I want to say is that there is a lot, and I'm very hopeful. We'll all see this turning around in our own lifetimes, hopefully, touch wood. And I'm very hopeful for your generation to do something which will make our country even greater.
Yes,
Hopefully, we can
definitely.
feel.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you so much. It was like a very engaging conversation.